fighting the indoctrination of America's youth on this episode of The Chris Meadows Show.
It's time for the Chris Meadows Show. Greensboro, Summerfield, Jamestown, Oak Ridge, Stokesdale, and all of Guilford County. Get ready. Chris Meadows is coming to you live right now.
Good day, my friends. I'm Chris Meadows, and welcome to episode 2 of the Chris Meadows Show. Sadly, last week was a violent week. A conservative voice was assassinated. Charlie Kirk was assassinated last week. They killed him, in my opinion, because they could not beat him. If you ever watched any of his videos, no one who debated him could beat him. Charlie was always right on the facts and evidence, and the left hated that. They couldn't beat him with the facts, so they killed him. This horrible event will create 1 million more young conservative voices. Thousands of requests have already been sent in to Turning Point USA to figure out how they can have a chapter at their school, whether it be a college or high school. The evildoers in this act probably did not expect that to happen. They thought he was going to be silenced and that was going to be the end of it. Last week, we also learned of the Ukrainian lady that was stabbed to death on a public train in Charlotte by a 14-time repeat offender. This offender was always released by a liberal judge for racial justice reasons. If someone is a criminal, then they are a criminal and should not be released solely based on race. When considering public responses to crimes that make national news, I offer an obvious observation. 5 years ago, a repeat criminal and drug addict died during arrest. The left went berserk, burning down buildings in cities and looting across the country. When a world-renowned conservative leader is assassinated, the politically right-leaning public holds prayer vigils. There is a difference between the right and the indoctrinated left. And the media places a huge part in the divide we see in this country. I'd like to offer a quote from George Orwell. During times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. And if you recall, if you saw my first episode, I made note of the biased news. These are the news stories that made Thursday's paper. Charlie Kirk was assassinated on Wednesday, September 10th. In Thursday, September 11th, which marked the 24th anniversary of the September 11th attacks on our country. But these were the headlines of the News and Record here in Greensboro. Every memory is a blessing. Now, this lady is from this area, and she died in the attack. She was a flight attendant. The other big stories on the front page, safety concerns, and they were talking about the replacement of playground equipment. Possibly the largest conservative voice in the world was assassinated the day before, and they didn't put it on the front page. It should have filled the whole front page. And then another story on the front page on that Thursday is the Guilford County School Board extends a contract for the superintendent. Our public schools are failing, and the superintendent gets a raise, and they put that on the front page. They made note of the Charlie Kirk assassination on page, I think, B1. That's the second section of the newspaper. So you won't see anything about the assassination until you get to section 2. On Friday, on the front page, he has earned their respect. For those that may not know the history of Greensboro, The civil rights sit-in movement started here in Greensboro at the Woolworth, downtown Greensboro, February 1st of 1960. And there were 4 NCA&T students that sat at the food counter at the Woolworth in Greensboro. The second headline is violations found at Greensboro dental practice. Still nothing about Charlie Kirk's assassination. They're talking about a dental practice and violations found there. No word of the assassination of possibly the world's most conservative, or the biggest voice in the conservative movement. On Saturday, they touch on people being fired for basically insulting Charlie Kirk after his death and saying he deserved it. Okay, that's our liberal newspaper for you. And then they talk about the city is fined over some emissions at a plant. And a school's theater program is a professor's legacy. Nothing really about Charlie Kirk being a world's conservative voice. And today's, this is Sunday that we're recording this, NC orders, expands vaccine access. That's great news. Now we're going to have our liberal governor push more boosters of the COVID vaccine. Still nothing about Charlie Kirk on the front page. And they also talk about Summerfield and their probe of 2 former employees. Folks, this is what we're dealing with in our local media. And we have found out that the assassin was basically indoctrinated far left in our education system in Utah. And that's part of the topics of that we'll go over today. My guest is Maria Adams, who's a Guilford County Chairwoman for Moms for Liberty. And when we come back from our break, I'll introduce Maria and we'll get going on that. Thank you, and we'll see you in a minute.
You're listening to The Chris Meadows Show. Join us on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify at The Chris Meadows Show.
Welcome back. With me today is Maria Adams. She is the Guilford County Chairwoman of Moms for Liberty. Welcome, Maria. We appreciate you coming today. And you're my first guest.
Thank you.
Isn't that exciting?
I'm honored. Yes. Thank you so much.
So you're going to talk about Moms for Liberty today.
Yes.
And I'm going to sit back and listen. Okay.
Okay, sure.
From what I understand, Moms for Liberty was really born during COVID.
Correct.
Okay. COVID really shined a light on the indoctrination we have seen across the education system.
Yes.
And with the online learning, parents were able to see what teachers were saying, and it was scary.
Yes.
I think it was scary. And we're seeing even today, unfortunately, with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that these teachers, some of them, and professors like the one at GTCC, they're getting fired for saying just ridiculous, insulting, horrible things about Charlie Kirk.
Right.
But this has been going on for years.
Right.
And you all have uncovered it and shined a light on it.
Right.
And so why don't you tell us a little bit about Moms for Liberty and what you're doing here in Guilford County?
Well, again, thank you, Chris. I appreciate you having me on your show, and I'm grateful to be able to share some things about Moms for Liberty, as well as the legislation that we're working on, or that we have worked on, that we continue to work on, and how it affects parental rights in public schools. I first want to say what Moms for Liberty is about, and I'm just going to read our mission statement. We are dedicated to fighting for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. And so, as you mentioned, Chris, the organization was founded in 2021 by two moms out of Florida who recognized that there were some issues in our public schools, and that in many cases our parental rights were being infringed, even constitutional rights were being violated. And so the organization was birthed out of there, and chapters started popping up all over the U.S., and including in Guilford County, when 2.5 years ago, a group of moms and I founded the Guilford County chapter. And ever since then, we've been very involved in the community. We've grown our chapter from our 10 founding members to over 150 regular and associate members, as well as nearly 400 online members. So when you count all that together, we have over 500 members throughout the county.
In Guilford County alone, 500 people.
Yes,
And
yes, that's
a
in
big
Guilford
chapter.
County. I mean, we might have a few folks that are in surrounding counties because in places like Rockingham County, Alamance County, we don't currently have a Moms for Liberty chapter, and so some of those folks, those parents, have joined our chapter so that they can stay abreast of what's going on in our state and so on. So yes, we are very proud of that, and we also have focused on building relationships with other like-minded organizations, such as the Guilford County Republican Party, the Women's Republican Party, and other nonprofit, nonpartisan groups like NC Values, Parents for Freedom Education North Carolina, I believe that's what it's called, and just other groups within the county. So we've been really focused on growing our organization, reaching out to parents, educate parents, engage them, and empower them. That's our focus there. So we're not just about like going after public schools. We're really not. We're about informing parents and getting parents involved and making sure that they understand their rights and that their children's rights are not being violated and so on. So I just wanted to share that before we got into, the deep stuff, I guess.
So you all call on the General Assembly on a regular basis,
Absolutely.
and you're following every piece of legislation that is related to education.
Yes.
In public and private schools, or just public and charter schools, or
Well,
universities, or
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, so we do follow the legislation that affects K-12 public schools. And some of it obviously does affect charter schools. And we're making sure to keep an eye on any kind of legislation that might affect homeschools. We do not need more regulation on homeschools. So we're making sure that we're protecting parents that homeschool their children. But yes, we do follow that. We advocate. We even help not necessarily write the legislation, but provide feedback on legislation. When I say we, mean there's over 20 chapters in North Carolina, and we have a legislative committee. And so the legislative committee meets with legislators on a regular basis. We have a legislative day every year in which we invite everybody to come and attend that. But we're very involved in developing laws and statutes that protect parental rights.
And the parental rights were initially maybe focused on some of the books that were in the libraries that were taught, gender identity, sexual identity. Some would consider pornography
Yes.
for little kids, not really seniors in high school or juniors, but these kids were kindergarten through fifth grade type of age group that were seeing just very sexually explicit materials in the school libraries, which public school libraries are funded by the taxpayers. Okay, just so you know that you are funding the schools, and this should be an issue across all political types.
Right.
From left to right, but it's not. It doesn't seem to be, because the left is attacking Moms for Liberty in a big way.
Oh, yes.
Which is unfortunate. It seems like they're making it sound like only conservatives care about what their kids are learning in school. I hope that's not the case. I hope liberal parents don't want their 6-year-old learning about different sexual positions, if you will. That's just highly inappropriate.
Right.
So do you want to touch on any of that?
Yes, definitely. Well, what I'll say is the books that are considered sexually explicit and might discuss, as you said, sexual positions, sexual orientation, going into detailed descriptions of body parts, body fluids, positions when you're having sex, talking about things, enjoyment of self-pleasure and all of that. We found that in our middle and high schools. We haven't seen that type of content in our elementary schools, but we are certainly seeing some content in our elementary schools that are very questionable, and it's really, in my opinion, inappropriate. And I've brought some samples to share that with you if you'd like to talk about it. Some of them is just plain common sense. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and show you one of those examples here.
Well, Maria, a funny story. About a year ago, Maria read some of these things at a women's Republican club, and it's extremely explicit. And I'm kind of a prude.
I'm not going there. I'm not going with that. I'm not going to the middle high school books. No. I'm not going to discuss the things that are the books that are in the middle and the high school. I'm not going to share that or read that because it's extremely inappropriate. It's for any child to be reading it. It's just horrible. But this is a book called What Are Your Words? And this is in a lot of the elementary schools in Guilford County. On the front of this, it says, "What are your words? A book about pronouns." And this has got pronouns such as he, him, and she, her. But they also have z and zer, e and m, and zi and zar. And I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing those other pronouns. Those made-up words. They're not even real words. They're not real pronouns. But this is what's in the elementary schools. And on this particular page, I'll read a little bit of this, and you can go onto YouTube, and they have read aloud. So if you want to see specifically what's in this book, sorry, give me just a moment to find that. Oh, here we go. It's this page right here. It doesn't have a page number, so I can't tell you specifically what it says, but it says here, "Sometimes I just use one set of pronouns, and sometimes I change my pronouns. Sometimes I use all the pronouns I can think of. My pronouns are like the weather. They change depending on how I feel. And that's okay because they're my words." So that's the type of books that are in our elementary schools. Mm-hmm. And they're unrestricted, meaning that students as young as 5 years old, 6 years old, have access to this book. Now, 5 and 6 year olds probably can't read that, but they will be looking at it, and this ideology will start creeping in. And you wonder, where does this kind of nonsense come from? This is a pronoun guide from the National Education Association. And this pronoun guide, which is meant to be given to teachers to tell teachers how to address certain pronouns with students, also includes some of these made-up pronouns. Mm-hmm. So you have to wonder, a educational institution that's funded by the taxpayer is giving students resources to teach them about made-up pronouns, which may affect their ability to learn proper English, proper grammar. So this is what's happening. That's just one example. I have several, but I'll stop there and see what you got to say.
So how many genders are there?
Well, there's only 2.
Okay. Are they being taught that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're supposed to be taught that in their human development or health classes. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, since you brought it up, just recently, House Bill 805 was veto override by our General Assembly. And in that bill, it does define what a man and what a woman is. It defines that there are only 2 genders, and it defines what a man and a woman is based on biology and your chromosomes. Mm-hmm.
So for those that are not familiar with veto overrides, when the General Assembly passes a bill, the governor can veto that bill. And the General Assembly can override that veto if they have enough support. And in North Carolina, in our state house, the Republicans have a majority, but they have to get some Democrats to override the governor. So they got enough Democrats, common sense Democrats, to override the veto on this.
Correct.
And the same thing in the state Senate. So I'm glad to see that there are some common sense Democrats out there that are elected officials. There's plenty out there. We know that, but so many of these left-leaning politicians are so loud that the moderate Democrats get scared of them,
Right.
and you get nonsense like this in our schools. Along those lines, you also, as an organization, talk about CRT and DEI.
Yes.
And before you get into that, I'd like to share a quick story about a civil rights icon here in Greensboro. I mentioned the February 1st event where the 4 students from A&T sat at the counter at Woolworth. Well, on February 2nd, one of those gentlemen could not go back. So a gentleman named Clarence Henderson joined the other 3. Now, he has been ignored a great deal because he is a registered Republican and a conservative, and the Civil Rights Museum does not give him his due. You can see in the newspaper they don't give him his due. But we had lunch a couple of years ago, and we got talking about what's being taught in schools.
Right.
And he made a very important point, and that being that in our public schools, so many of our minority students are taught that they are victims, and that the white man has held down the black population for hundreds of years. And he said something very profound to me. He said, if they continue to teach people that they're victims, these kids are going to believe they're victims for their whole life.
Right.
And how can anyone thrive in life if they believe they're a victim because they were taught K through 12 that they're victims?
Right.
And we have to change that. And that's I think that's part of CRT and the DEI, that they want to teach kids that they're victims.
Right.
And that it's someone else's fault that they don't succeed.
Exactly.
You're listening to The Chris Meadows Show. Join us on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify at The Chris Meadows Show.
Welcome back. We are here with Maria Adams, who's with Moms for Liberty here in Guilford County. I started the show talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. He talked on hundreds and hundreds of college campuses about indoctrination of our students across the country. And I think we could probably tie in a lot of what we talked about so far, the Parents' Bill of Rights, CRT, and DEI, into some things that he talked about.
Right.
And we could be here again all day. But your organization, almost 500 people or so associated with you, are out there every day talking to their kids, trying to get into the schools. And have you found examples of what we would call indoctrination and what they're trying, for lack of a better word, brainwash our kids
Right.
into some of this nonsense?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have documentation in writing as well as in photographs of Guilford County schools using diversity, equity, inclusion to introduce tenets of critical race theory, and also incorporating it into the curriculum as well as social emotional learning. And there are, I've given to your producer those documentations as well as some photographs of staff development where they're teaching about white supremacy, and they're pushing that narrative onto the teachers so that the teachers then turn around and look at students based on their skin color and treat those students in that way. As a matter of fact, some teachers have indicated that they've been told that they're to treat white students differently than black students here in Guilford County schools. But also this affects the students. And so a parent wrote a testimony. This was actually on Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's facts worksheet, and so it's a public document. So I'm just going to read a little bit of what this particular parent said about her middle schooler, that her daughter brought home a form about a survey in regards to a Math Identity Leadership Accelerator program. And the survey is conducted by the Human Resources Research Program Organization. The paper says that they want to understand how changes in school leaders and teachers' attitudes and behaviors impact students' confidence in solving math problems. So they're taking math, and they're using that as they're taking CRT and they're incorporating it into math, into the actual curriculum. So it's not just a separate, lesson that's being interwoven into the curriculum. So additionally, what this parent says is, what I saw about this program is that it aims to increase math achievement by providing high-quality school leadership professional development that equips educators with effective, culturally responsive leadership. And remember that term, culturally responsive leadership. Training for school leaders will address how systemic racism, bias, and deficit thinking obstruct high-level expectations for high-middle schools through culturally responsive instruction. And again, what culturally responsive instruction is about taking the color of the skin color of a child and culturally responding to teaching them based on their skin color, not on their ability.
Mm-hmm. So one of our friends ran for school board last year, and one of the stats that she pushed out and mentioned quite a bit was that like 50% of 10th graders in Guilford County Public Schools cannot read at level.
Correct.
Over 50% cannot read. If they can't read, they can't do math. Right. Math is harder than
literacy
reading.
Is fundamental. Yes.
It is frightening. Mm-hmm. We're teaching our kids to be victims. We're not teaching them to read and do math. While our international competitors, if you will, China and India, are creating math and science geniuses.
Right.
We're worried about the color of someone's skin.
Right.
And DEI.
Right.
And they're building rockets. So,
may I say this about DEI? Sure. So I don't have the exact figures, but I can tell you that millions of dollars have been spent on DEI programs in Guilford County schools. That's our tax dollars that are being spent on programs to basically divide students by the color of their skin, their race, their gender, and their identity. But there is zero data that says that DEI has improved educational outcomes at all.
Well, if 50% of kids can't read, then we know it hasn't.
Right. Exactly. So that was my point, is reiterating that having these programs has not improved educational outcomes for children.
Mm-hmm. And is there a way for concerned parents to reach you? Would that be through your website? Is there a local website for Moms for Liberty?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And also there is a way for parents to contact you about if their kid hears something in a classroom.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Or takes a video or whatever, and they can send it to you, mm-hmm. and you can go to the school board, to the superintendent that just got a big raise that made the front page of the paper when the assassination of Charlie Kirk did not. They can contact you.
Right.
And
yes.
you would contact them. Your organization would contact them.
Yes. Did you want me to tell what that is?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you can go to momsforliberty.org to go to our national website, and through that you can search for our chapter, and then be able to find our chapter website. You can also contact me directly, or rather you can contact Moms for Liberty Guilford County, and one of our board members will respond to it. But that email address is moms, the letter 4, Liberty Guilford at gmail.com. So it's Moms for Liberty Guilford at gmail.com, using the number 4, not spelled out 4.
Okay. Any closing thoughts you want to share with people?
Yes, if you don't mind. I want to make sure that parents know that they have parental rights that are protected by our state statutes as well as our federal government. We have the Parents' Bill of Rights, which is the Senate Bill 49, and you can go to the NC legislative website to read more about what your rights are. So we have SB 49, which is the Parents' Bill of Rights. We have HB 805, which was recently ratified. We also have the federal laws. Let me just tell you what those are real quick. We have the PPRA, which is the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. We have FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. We have Title IX, which protects our girls to make sure that they have the same access to sports and to education. And we have Title VI, which is the Civil Rights Act, which protects, again, based on race, color, and national origin. So I highly recommend that parents become educated, engaged, and empowered. You most certainly can send information to us if you feel like you don't know how to go about handling a situation. We're first going to tell you that, we're going to instruct you on how to go about doing it yourself. But if you're not finding the results that you're looking for, we're certainly willing to advocate for you. So we welcome parents to reach out to us, join our organization, and ask questions.
Great. And in the green bar scrolling at the bottom of the screen, you'll see our email address. If you have some questions, I'll be glad to pass on to Maria if you'd like. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
for being here.
It.
And we're going to take another quick break.
You're listening to The Chris Meadows Show. Join us on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify at The Chris Meadows Show.
Welcome back. We're going to wrap up the podcast episode. I hope you've learned a lot about Moms for Liberty and what they're trying to accomplish in our school systems. We need a lot of help getting our education system straightened out. I mentioned in the first episode that I'd like to touch on current events. We will have, the elections in Greensboro and all the towns across Guilford County coming up. And I've invited candidates if they want to come chat with us. We have our first candidate that will be on episode 3. His name is Adrian Eckenrod. He's running for town council in Oak Ridge, which is in the northwest part of Guilford County. Hopefully we'll have some others that want to be in the next episode as well. I want to thank you for spending some time with us today. And in the first episode, on Facebook alone, we had over 900 people view that episode. Thanks for tuning in. We're also on Spotify, and we will be on YouTube. We do need 100 subscribers before they will stream any episodes. So please go to YouTube and hit the subscribe button. It is free to do so. So with that, appreciate you spending some time with us, and we'll see you next time.